Hi everyone, today we're going to have an introduction to HTML5 canvas, and we're going to look at how to animate a simple object on that canvas. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial on HTML5 canvas element, which we will be programming using JavaScript. Hopefully by the end of this introduction tutorial we'll have a simple shape traveling across the canvas. Okay, let's get started. In my project environment I've just created a project folder which is empty at the moment except for another folder which will store any JavaScript files that I create for this project. If I go to my text editor, the first thing I'm going to do is save a blank text document as a HTML file, because I will need a web page to host my canvas, right? So I'm going to call this square project HTML, and this is going into my project folder. The next thing I'm going to do is make another new document which I'm going to save as, well, this is going to be my JavaScript file. So let's go into my JavaScript folder, and the file type is JavaScript. I'm going to call this square animation.js. Okay, we're good to go. Let's go back to the square project HTML file. I'm just going to paste in some HTML that I've already written. It's standard stuff. Of course, we have the HTML tags, a head section, and a body section. In the body section, I already have my canvas element waiting to be manipulated by JavaScript, and maybe some CSS as well. I've given it an ID which will allow me to target this element with JavaScript later on, and beneath that I have a link to my square animation JavaScript file which I just created and put into my JavaScript folder. I've also, in the style section, just styled my canvas to have a nice thick black border, so when we see it on the screen we'll be able to identify exactly how big it is and where it is. So let's go into my square animation JavaScript folder and let's get busy with some JavaScript. The first thing I'm going to do is create a variable. I'm going to call it canvas, and this is going to reference the canvas element on my web document. So document get element by ID, did I call it my canvas? Yes, my canvas. Okay. So that will give me a reference to the element on the web page, and now I can play with it. So what I'm going to do first is set up the width and the height of the canvas. So canvas.width is going to be equal to inner width. Now this is a JavaScript term, and this is basically the width of the parent of the element that's using it. So as we can see, the parent of my canvas element is the body element. So my canvas is going to have the same width as the body of my web page, which is what I want for this. And canvas.height is going to be equal to inner height. Awesome. So if we save that, and if we save my HTML document and run the HTML in a web browser, hopefully we're going to see a nice big black bordered canvas which has the same width as the body of the web page and the same height as the body of the web page as well. Now what I'm going to do next in my JavaScript file is create a shape, and I'm going to do a rectangle. But before I do that, I need to create a digital brush which will allow me to draw on the canvas. So I'm going to make a new variable. I'm just going to call it brush, and to do this in JavaScript we're going to use our canvas reference, and we are going to use a function called getContext, and our context is two-dimensional. Okay, so now we have a brush that is going to be able to play on that canvas in a two-dimensional context. Alright, so now I think we're ready to go. Let's create a rectangle. So I'm going to call my brush, and I'm going to say, hey brush, could you please draw me a rectangle? So I'm going to call the fillRect method of JavaScript. It requires 4 parameters. It requires the x coordinate and the y coordinate of the rectangle on the canvas, and it also requires the width and the height of the rectangle as well. Okay, so let's hard code some values in here. The top left corner of the canvas has an xy coordinate of 0, 0. This is x0, y0. So let's just put a rectangle there. x0, y0. I'm going to have a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. That'll do. So we've got a nice square. The width and the height are the same. Let's save that and refresh my web page. And there we have it. We have a rectangle, which is actually a square, at location 0, 0 on the canvas. Now, wouldn't it be great if I could animate this shape so that it moves in a positive x direction across the canvas? So if it goes this way, the x coordinate value is increasing. So instead of it remaining at 1, over time it's going to become, remaining at 0, over time it will become 1, then it'll become 2, then it'll become 3, then it'll become 4, then it'll become 5. And if we keep redrawing that rectangle, it will look like it's moving across the canvas. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to create a function called, I'm going to call it animate. You can call it what you like. And all this is going to do is draw rectangles at locations. Now, I've just suggested to you that the only variable I want to change in this example is the x coordinate. I still want my y to be 0, I want the width to be 100, and I want the height to be 100. But I want x to change. So why don't we store the value of x in a variable? In fact, outside of my function, I'm going to create a variable called x and assign it a value of 0. So this is the starting value of x. So when I call my animate function, this will be 0, and we will see this situation. Okay? In fact, let me just comment out this line of code, and let's call the animate function to see if that's what happens. Let's save that and just run this again, refresh. Hopefully we're just going to see the same thing. Okay? So that's what's happening at the moment. If we were to change x to be 100 and save it and refresh, then the x value is moving in a positive direction across the canvas because x is increasing. Okay? If we were to make that 500, then ooh, that's interesting. I changed the width, didn't I, and not the x value. Okay? So, we're going to use x to allow us to update the x coordinate of the rectangle that we're drawing. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we're going to update the value of x. So this basically means x is equal to x plus 1, right? We take the current value of x, which is 0, we add 1 to it, and we assign that to be the new value of x. So in this situation, x will become equal to 1. And this is just a shorthand way of writing this. Okay, they both mean the same thing. Okay? So let's update the value of x by 1, and then let's draw another rectangle. Okay, so when we call the animate function, this is going to happen. So let's run that. And nothing happens. What I really want to do is call animate 1,000 times. So let's do this. For var y equals 0 to y is less than 1,000 y plus plus. And then let's call the animate function 1,000 times. How about that? Let's just reset our x coordinate to be 0. So we start in the top corner here. Now we're going to call animate 1,000 times. The first time we call it, x is equal to 1, and we make a rectangle. The next time we call it, x will be equal to 2, and we make a rectangle. The next time we call it, x will be equal to 3, and we make a rectangle, right? So let's save that and run. Ooh, did you see that? This has drawn 1,000 rectangles. Unfortunately, every time it draws the next rectangle, it doesn't clear the previous rectangle, because we don't want to see the previous rectangle, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to increment x by 1. We're going to clear the rectangle. We're going to clear everything from the canvas. So I'm going to use a function called clearRect, which has the same size as the canvas. So we're going to clear a rectangle which starts up here at 0, 0 and finishes down here, which is the width and height of the canvas. All of that is going to be cleared, and then we're going to draw our new rectangle. So let's save that and run. So the rectangle started here, and our for loop took many rectangles to over here. This is the final rectangle that was drawn. Unfortunately, we're not seeing any animation. So although this idea is a good idea, it's not really creating animation. So to do this in the style of animation, what we're going to do in our animate function is create a request for an animation frame. This is another JavaScript function. And what this does is it calls the animate function after it's completed the code in the function. So it's going to do all this, and then it's going to request another animation frame by calling animate again. So it will do all of this again, but in a new animation frame. Okay, so if I save that and refresh my page, it doesn't work. The reason for that is we haven't called. I've got to fix this now. I don't need my for loop anymore. So let's get rid of the for loop and let's just call animate. So when we do this, this is actually my computer program. It's one line of code. My computer program simply calls this function. This function will do this stuff, and then it will call itself as a new animation frame. And this will happen again, and then it calls itself. We've just created a loop. So let's save that again and refresh the page. And here we go. We have an animated rectangle. Have a go and see if you can get an animated rectangle on your screen.